to Sustaining Practices for Perilous Times. As many of you know, this is a series that is an opportunity to feature Harvard University chaplains, faculty, administrators, and other folks from our wider Harvard community, offering insight into their personal spiritual practices. And in this space, we define spiritual practice broadly. We're showcasing an array of multimodal practices as well, from prayer to poetry, movement and mindfulness, cooking, other creative outlets that inspire us, cultivate meaning, provide emotional, spiritual sustenance, hope, energy, courage, all those good things to press forward during these very difficult times. We are here every Thursday from 5 to 5:30. This is our second to last, I believe, presentation, and I am very excited for our gathering today in honor of the College Wellness Day. We have brought you some very special presentations on embodied practices. And so I am very thrilled to see y'all, and we'll kick it to Rachel for introductions.
Hi all, so excited to be with you again. We have two great presentations. First, we're gonna hear from Rabbi Getzel Davis, who's a Harvard chaplain and the director of graduate programming at Harvard Hillel. And then we're gonna hear from Jessica Young Chang, who is a chaplain intern in the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life and a student at Harvard Divinity School. And I think next year's Harvard Divinity School Student Association president. Exciting. I'm so excited to introduce them, and I'll pass it over to Getzel.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure and an honor to see you all today. The practice that I'm here to share with you is a little bit of an experiment. And I'm excited to be offering it as today. It says in the book of Psalms, it says a psalm for praise, raise a shout to God, to Hashem, all the earth, serve God with gladness, enter the presence with joy. And there's this idea that it is it's a mitzvah, it's a commandment, it's an opportunity for connection to be joyous. And a friend of mine, Shimon Dartwith, and I have been exploring what a combination of what's called laughter yoga and Jewish texts, which we're calling laughter Torah. It's a practice in the process, but I want to just frame what's leading behind it, and then we'll actually get to jump into the texts. So this next text is from Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, Likutei Moharan, 19th century Ukraine. He says, it's a great mitzvah commandment to be happy all the time and to strive with all of one's strength to distance oneself from depression and dark countenance. All illnesses that come to a person come because of disturbances to her happiness. But joy is a great medicine. Make every effort to maintain a happy, positive outlook at all times. It is a natural human tendency to become discouraged and depressed because of the hardships of life. Everyone has had their full share of suffering. This is why you must force yourself to be happy at all times. Use every possible way to bring yourself to joy, even joking or acting a little crazy. It's true that a broken heart is actually good for an individual, but it's best to set aside only an hour a day to cultivate a broken heart in prayer before God. And the rest of the day, one ought to cultivate only joy and happiness. For from a broken heart, it's relatively easy to succumb to black bile, which is depression. Easier, we might say, than it is to go from happiness to depression. Thus, it is better to be happy always, leaving only 1 hour for having a broken heart. And he goes on and says, elsewhere, he says, regarding happiness, sometimes when people are full of joy and dancing, they grab a person standing outside, a person suffering from depression and darkness, and they bring them against their will into the celebration of dancers and force themselves against their will to be happy with them. So it is with happiness. When a person is happy and full of joy, then all the darkness and sufferings flee from them. So we're going to practice being happy. It's kind of a funny thing to do, but Rabbi Nachman's really fundamentally most worried about what he's calling depression. Really, it's numbness. It's living a life where one is cut off from one's emotions and not actually able to feel. And And one of the best ways to open one's heart, both to the happiness and also to the sorrow, is through laughter. So we're gonna quickly go around and we're gonna introduce ourselves. And we're gonna say our name, we're gonna say our pronouns, and we're gonna share our laugh. So everyone's gonna unmute if you feel comfortable. And I'll start. I'm Getzel. I take he, him, and so we're pulling ourselves in, we're pulling each other in, and we're going to try a couple other laughing exercises just to see how that goes. So the first one is a bow and arrow. So you can stand for this, you cannot stand for it, it's whatever you'd like. But we're going to start, we're going to go, ah, 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 ha, 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 ha. So you can all try. You're welcome to unmute. If you're welcome not to unmute, whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. Ha, ha, ha. And the other side. Ha, ha, ha. And one more just so we're balanced. Ha, ha, ha. So we're now gonna tap on ourselves, and we're just gonna try to bring some laughter into the parts of ourselves. You can give yourself a massage. You can find those places that are feeling rather stuck, and just try to like laugh or chuckle, or if it really hurts, to cry, or to just to like smile a little bit, but just try to laugh into all of those places that feel really stuck. So we're gonna do this for 1 minute. Maybe you want to a little bit, or an ooh. You go through all the your vowels. Oh. So for our last minute, we're just going to laugh. And for this, it's really helpful to be unmuted, because our laughter will egg on each other and drive together. So just find something to laugh about. And if you don't, laugh at all the other silly people laughing on your screen. And we're just going to laugh for 1 minute. Oh, okay, that was a minute. And now we're just going to take 20 seconds and integrate it. Just notice how your body feels right now. Notice your heart. Notice if your state of mind is any different. And I wish you all wellness, and thanks for joining.
Thanks so much, Getzel. I'll pass it over to Jess.
Good evening, friends and loved ones. I'm so happy to be here with you. My name is Jessica. I love it when folks call me Jess. I use she, her. I'm a second-year MDiv student and one of 3 chaplain interns at the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life at Harvard Divinity School. I want to talk with you about breath today, and I want us to breathe together. So in my physical body, I have 2 feet and I stand on them both. And I may have more than 2 feet in my spiritual body, but I have at least 2 feet in my spiritual body. And on each of those feet, I stand in a different tradition. So with one foot, I stand squarely as a student of the teachings of Jesus Christ. And with the other foot, I stand very squarely in the traditions of non-dual Shakta Tantra within the larger umbrella of Dharmic traditions of South Asia. And the practice that I want to offer today, I feel has grounding, has foundation in both spaces. So Rachel has shared a handout that I built that you can use. You can click on it now and look at it later. You can look at it now if you want to, but I just want to talk a little bit about the breath and its power. So one of my teachers, Elisa Commerce, says that the breath is the first, last, and best way that we have of assessing the weather of our mind. And it is the quickest and most powerful way to change the weather of our mind. She says that, much like on the surface of the planet that we live on, right? Sometimes it's raining. Sometimes the clouds are high and wispy and thin in the sky. Sometimes there's snow. Sometimes the clouds are dark. Sometimes the sky is an interesting color because there's a wildfire burning across town or across the country. But if we get high enough out, the sun is always shining. And the breath is that opportunity for us to remember that the sun is always shining. It is the means by which we can understand what is happening on the surface of the planet of our experience, but also the stillness and the shine and the capacity that is above that experience. So there is a word in Sanskrit and a word in Greek that I feel mean the same thing. In Greek, that word is pneuma, right? It means spirit. It means breath. Sometimes it is translated as wind. The word prana in Sanskrit is actually translated in very similar ways, translated as wind, as breath, as spirit. And so we, specifically in yogic traditions, which is a part of my training, we draw prana into the body by breathing consciously. So I'd like to do a little bit of that with you today. I'm going to teach you a technique called nadi shodhana. Nadi is a Sanskrit word that means channel or river, more specifically. And shodhana is a word that means cleansing, right? So on one level, you can think about this as working with the various energy channels or rivers of prana in your own body. And we can use this technique to help cleanse them, specifically 3, right? The one that runs central in your body, up and down the spine, and the one that runs on one side and the one that runs on the other. So in order to do this, it is helpful if you have clear sinus passages, but not necessary. You can also do this without using your hand. And it is helpful to also use one hand. I'm going to use my right hand. You can use your right or your left. I've written it in that document for right-handed folks. But I feel like even if you're left-handed, you can use your right hand okay with this. I like to place my index and middle finger in the space between my eyebrows and then rest my thumb against my right nostril and my ring and pinky finger against my left nostril. Now there's a classic mudra that you can use where you bring those first and second fingers to the space at the base of your thumb, and you do the same with the thumb and the pinky and ring finger. So it's really just a question of do you want fingers in front of your face or not? There's also some interesting energy here that can be stimulated at this side of your third eye. So if that feels like it's a useful thing for you, you can do that as well, right? So if you're following me, then you'll rest these 2 fingers at the space between the eyebrows. Allow the thumb to rest on one nostril and the ring finger to rest on the other. Now that you've got that hand in place, if it's okay with your nervous system, I invite you to close the eyes. Now, if closing the eyes doesn't feel right for your nervous system, that's okay. You can let the gaze stay open, but don't feel like you have to stare too much at the screen. Maybe the eyes drop down a little bit so that your gaze is moving inward, even if the eyes are open. Sit up tall in the body. Ground through the hips. If your feet can touch the floor, ground through the feet. And feel the spine long and the ribcage spacious. And just take a breath here with the fingers resting. We're not opening or closing anything. We're just allowing the hands to rest on either side of the nostrils and just watching the breath move through the nostrils here. You might observe as you're breathing here that one nostril feels a little more or less open than the other. That's very normal. can you deepen the breath here? And now the next time that you exhale, close off just your right nostril and inhale through only the left side. At the top of the inhale, you might pause briefly to switch and now close off the left nostril and then exhale through the right nostril. And now inhale through the right nostril. And then exhale through the left. So you switch, you've closed the left, open the right, and exhale. And let's try that again. Inhale through the left nostril. Just pausing briefly at the top. And then exhale through the right nostril. So close the left and open the right and exhale. Inhale through the right nostril. Close right, open left, and exhale. And continue this way. So we're just inhaling and exhaling through one nostril at a time, and we're switching at the top of each breath in. And the next time that you exhale through the left nostril, just bring the hand away from the face and take a few breaths. Allowing breath when the time is right to rise and fall through both nostrils. Notice how you feel here. Notice the quality, the content, the nature of your thought right now. So another of my teachers says that if he were only allowed to practice one pranayama technique, one breathing technique for the rest of his life, this would be it. This is a pretty profound technique. You can do it for a minute or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20. And you can also be creative and flexible, elastic with the way that you do it. So when you feel ready, I invite you to blink the eyes open and return to the space around you. So you can, after you've practiced this for a while, you can experiment a little bit with the length of the inhale and the length of the exhale. In traditional yoga study, a longer inhale and a more full pause at the top of the breath in can be energizing, can be filling, can be expansive, and a longer exhale and a brief pause at the bottom of the exhale can be grounding, tonifying, detoxifying. So I practice this every morning. Some days I feel like I need a little more juice, and so I take a really full pause at the top of the breath in. Some days I feel like I need a little more stability and grounding, and so I let the exhale be a little longer and more full. I'll just close by saying that in the document that I shared with you, in 2 sacred texts that are important to me, my traditions, the breath has a lot of import, right? So in the book of Genesis, in the Hebrew Bible, Genesis 2, chapter 7 reads, "Then the Lord formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." In the Bhagavad Gita, which is a conversation between Krishna, who's an incarnation of Vishnu, the sustainer, and Arjuna, a great warrior, Vishnu says to Arjuna, the process of offering is Brahman, is God. That which is offered is Brahman. Brahman offers the sacrifice in the fire of Brahman. Brahman is attained by those who see Brahman in every action. Some aspirants offer the forces of vitality, regulating their inhalation and exhalation, and thus gain control over these forces. So breath is life, right? We could fast for days and we could sacrifice or abstain from water for days, but we could only fast from breath for hours. Not even hours, minutes, let's be real, right? So my hope is that this practice this afternoon has been a generative and substantive one for you, and there's more information in that document. I will put my email address in the chat, so if you'd like to follow up or have further questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Getzel and Jess. I think I speak for everybody when I say, like, I feel much more grounded and certainly connected to my physical self at this moment. And I really needed both of these practices exactly as they were offered. So thank you. We have a couple of minutes. So very happy to open to questions or reflections from our participants. If anything came up for y'all that you'd like to share, we are here.
I just think that was a great combination. We could lose our breath laughing and find it again with Jess.
Really wonderful to end the day with a smile, I have to say. So we know that's so good for our nervous system and our physiology. So I'm grateful to both of you for the practices.
It's lovely how both laughter and breath are always possible, right? Like wherever we are, whenever we are. These are two lovely back pocket practices that are available to us by nature of just being human.
When you said we're all gonna go around and laugh, I was like, can I do that? Like, I don't think that I've ever laughed on command, just like after introducing myself. Like, it's one thing to like laugh in a situation because you feel like laughing is like the socially acceptable thing, but like just to be like, to laugh as like part of my introduction was something that I was like, this is so interesting. But I felt like it, like, and hearing other people do that in their introductions just was like such a powerful way to cut through the weird disembodied nature of Zoom. And also really interesting to think about because it feels really challenging to be like, don't be like, it's bad to be sad, always be happy. So to be reminded that like actually you can make your body laugh and like that can have effects is really powerful. I'm grateful for that.
I would say that I think that it's a practice not to be numb, and that opening our heart, often one of the things that comes is laughter, and that Rabbi Nachman was a specific thinker who really was particularly worried about the dangers of sadness. But I think that it's a really powerful thing that holy laughter is something I've really been working on in my own life and my own wellness. So yeah, thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, Rachel, something you said reminded me. I've been thinking about how we recognize people in this time, and laughter. I feel like, recognizing someone's laugh, knowing someone's laugh, and being able to be like, oh, that's who that person is. When you hear it, I feel like there's a very sweet experience of my heart of like recognizing someone by their laugh,
That's so beautiful. Again, I just want to reiterate deep gratitude both to Jess and Getzel and to Rachel, as always, for co-facilitating this space with me, and to all of you for showing up, both to be with one another and for yourselves. I'm so thrilled, and I think that this is, all of our presentations really get at this idea, but today especially, really is so beautifully illustrative of the notion that spiritual practice is so accessible and that we have all of the tools to engage in really deep and meaningful connection in just a moment with exactly the tools that we have just by being human. And it's really such a joy to share that with you all.